So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Bobbing for Hair Dryers. This is me, Kurt Sasek, although you probably know that because my name's at the top of the LinkedIn thing where you're watching this. I have Miss Claire Vorster, and she is she's a writing and communications coach. And for those of you who want to start a business, there's nothing more important than connecting with your audience. And that's one of, as a writer, that's one of her specialties and strengths. So she's going to give us some great feedback for how we can better communicate, whether you're writing a story, whether you're advertising, whether you want to brand yourself and connect with your audience. So Claire, thank you very much for joining, and pleasure to have you.
You're most welcome, Kurt. It's lovely to see you again. I really enjoy, I do follow you on LinkedIn, and I really enjoy your shower videos. They're fabulous.
Thank you. They are going to be evolving. I may throw in some tub videos with bubble bath.
I was thinking you could take it on tour and maybe go and do, like, I don't know, infinity pools and all sorts of water-based things.
Or maybe I'll put it on Tinder and say, coming to a shower near you or something.
Well, there you go. We're connecting with people already.
There. Yeah. Well, the idea for the shower, because, all my best ideas came to me at odd times, creative ideas, like when I was a chef, came to me in odd times, like the shower. So I thought, oh, yeah, the shower. So the theme of the shower videos is something creative, because creative ideas always came to me in the shower. I just got bubble bath from the pharmacy yesterday, so I'm going to start adding bubble bath to the videos.
Yeah,
bring the shower theme even fuller. But so
it works super well because it's simple, and I think partly the thing with videos, I've said it a few times. It's like, why do people watch cat videos? They watch cat videos because they're relaxing, and especially somewhere like LinkedIn. There are times on LinkedIn where people specifically watch relaxing things. And I think a lot of that is like, I'm in workflow, but now I want to come out of it and just look at a tree or whatever it is, or a cat. But I think what I love about your shower videos is that there's a sense in which you're taking us out of that, traditional place with the potted plant and the studio and all the rest of it. And we do get great thoughts in the shower, people sing in the shower, whatever it is. So I actually feel like that's a really clever little frame for what you're saying.
Well, thank you. My singing is shit, so I don't sing even to myself. But
yeah, you can't take an electric guitar in that either.
Yeah, but that's yeah. There you go. So already. So how about you talk about, I have your site pulled up here.
Yeah.
You talk about finding a voice.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who is not striving to be a writer?
Yep.
But, let's face it, in business, you got to do some writing.
You do.
So what kind of, are there some basic tips you could give somebody if it's just the average person on LinkedIn who's trying to get followers, if there's somebody who's starting their own business and they're just putting up copy on their website because they can't afford to hire a writer? Are there some tips you can give somebody to help them find their voice for like kind of everyday business situations?
Yeah, I can. And partly because I've learned the hard way. Because I started in advertising and marketing, and then I moved into publishing, and then, over time launched my own company. And I made a lot of mistakes. So yes, I can. Speaking from experience, I think the first thing you've really got to know is why you're doing something. It's like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I have some spare time and I just want to have some fun and maybe connect with some people? Am I doing this because I have a brand that I need to launch and it's really important because it's my only source of income? Am I doing this because I kind of want to see where this goes and I want to maybe, get into video, maybe end up writing a book? I don't know, whatever it is. First of all, you need to know why you're doing it and how much of it, is it a big deal or a little deal? So if it's a big deal, you want to get super specific really early on. So if you're launching a brand, you need to be really specific about your customer and how you're going to connect with them. What I mean by that sounds like a generic thing to say, but it's amazing how many people come to me and they actually don't know who their customers are. They don't really know. They sort of have a vague idea, and they start doing Facebook ads and they start doing videos and all sorts of things. They spend a lot of time sort of talking to people and wondering why they don't have any customers. And the reason why they don't have any customers is they haven't actually figured out exactly what the brand is and who their audience is. So the first thing I would say is either get a coach or however you get there. And I think you've said this before, and I really agree with it. You need to get simple. You need to make whatever it is. If it's complicated, you need to make it super simple. Because if you can't explain it in a sort of Twitter headline, if you can't explain what you're doing, or even like 10 words, it's likely that no one else is going to understand what you're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like I took a business class once, and they said that when you're creating a product, you need to be able to explain what it is in an elevator pitch, meaning very briefly. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So the elevator pitch is kind of like, yeah, you've got a couple of floors of elevator, yeah. But what I would say is like here, and I know you've done this on LinkedIn, but I think it's almost like a formula. It's almost like I help adjective noun to outcome. So I help motivated students too. I help busy professionals too. It's kind of like, what is it? Who's your audience, and what do you want? What do you want for them at the end of the day? What is it you're providing them? What is the outcome? So for me, it's I help people to tell successful stories. That's it. And I can apply that in lots of different ways, because that might be business, it might be creative writing, but essentially we're all storytelling.
You mentioned how so often people don't know their target audience, or they're kind of vague. When you're consulting people, what are maybe a couple of questions you would ask to help them whittle it down? Can you think of maybe a couple real life examples? Or
yeah, I've got one question that I ask is, if you've got 100 people in a room, say for example, you're selling wine to people. You might be selling wine to restaurants, you might be selling wine to hotels, you might be selling wine to personal customers.
Direct to consumer.
If you put all those people in a room, what's the number one thing that they would want? So that helps you get really clear. Sometimes people want expertise. Sometimes they want an experience. Sometimes they want transformation of some kind. Sometimes they want something made easier than it is at the moment. Sometimes they've got a problem that they want to solve. But if you put 100 people that you're sort of thinking about, even if they're quite a wide target audience, into a room, what's the number one thing that they all need or want? And that's a really good question to help you.
No, that's great. So I'm kind of getting off writing here, but since you brought up some great points about identifying, and why do you think when the iPhone came out, people were waiting, the lines were just insane at the malls, outside the Apple stores. What do you think? But I know this kind of comes down to messaging, which is your strength. What is it you think Apple does so well? Because Samsung, people don't line up for the new Galaxy, but the iPhone, people will. Apple,
yeah.
it's they've created, it's kind of like Harley Davidson, the same thing.
Oh, that's so interesting you say that, because they're one of my favorites, Harley Davidson. I love Harley Davidson. Like in terms of creating engagement with your audience, in terms of giving them an experience, in terms of them running with this thing and it becoming this amazing lifestyle that they adopt. Nobody does it better than Harley Davidson. And a lot of that advertising is really pretty simple. I mean, it's sophisticated in the sense that they know what they're doing with it. Like they know exactly what kind of guide to put in the picture. They know how to frame the bike. They know the colors that they have to use. They know not to put too much text in, but to tell a story. They know that their brand personality is rugged and it's rebellion. So again, that's 2 words. Harley Davidson is rugged and rebellious, right? That's it. And Jeep do it really well as well. And I think what Apple did super well early on was they established themselves as the creative alternative. They established themselves as better than and easier than. So why wouldn't you? And also what came into that was super intelligent design. So the early Macs and the iPhones, the color palette and everything worked really well. And if Steve Jobs is, a lot of his speeches are about being really simple, but he says it's with Apple, it started off super complicated. It's a very complicated product. But what do? You reduce it to 3 or 4 things. And if you watch his first speech about the iPhone, it's on YouTube. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I use it when I'm coaching presentation skills, because his use of visuals, humor, the use of things like techniques like the power of 3 and so on, he nailed it, absolutely nailed it. And, that's why, because they made a complicated product super simple for the consumer and made it attractive through design and color. And, the rest is history.
What's the power of 3?
So if we're getting into persuasive technique, if you think about lots of very, very famous slogans like Nike, just do it, McDonald's, I'm loving it, they use the power of 3, and for some reason, and I don't really know why, there is research done into it, but the human brain loves things in 3s. So you'll often see Kennedy used it. I mean, Oprah Winfrey uses it. Everyone uses it. You'll say to engage, to inspire, and to motivate, or to defend, to protect, and to prosper, or whatever it is. But for some reason, the power of 3 works super well in speaking and in writing. But it's like a persuasive technique that.
Oh, so it isn't. Okay, I was oversimplifying. Okay, so it isn't just 3 words, it's 3 things. So like to serve, protect, and to defend, that's more than 3 words, but it's 3 things in the
got
message.
One there.
Okay.
That's you start thinking of them.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, serve.
Well, no, I thought that actually was one. I thought that was one. Wasn't that from our military, or I can't remember.
Yeah, serve, protect, and defend. Sounds brilliant. But it can be. I think
that's something from our police. I don't think I originated that.
Well, why not just trademark it anyway?
Yeah, there you go. So on your site,
yes.
We've already kind of started on this, but on your site, and for those of you interested, you can go to clairevorster.com. You have a section on your site, choose how you want your business or brand to go. And then you go, talking about your, how, whether you're B2B or B2C, talking about how people can write their story. So, you have 6 points, and I wanted to go through each one. And if you could just give a little bit of your insight on how you teach each one, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the first one is connect with a skeptical buyer. So can you please maybe educate us a little bit on, how you do that?
So that comes all the way back to the power of storytelling, which is where we started. And often you get buyer resistance. Either they are very committed to someone else, they don't like the price, or they don't particularly want to think about it, or whatever. But one of the things that works really well with people is that you stop trying to persuade them and sell to them, and you start telling them stories. So, for example, you could say, well, let me just boil it down to this. You're not selling glue, you're selling the story of how people stick things together. All right. So Airbnb do this really, really well. Their tagline, and I'm not sure if it's still this, but it was fabulous, is live like a local. So they're not trying to get you to stop using hotels and stop kind of doing the traditional things that you used to do. What they're saying is change your travel experience and live like a local. So the story that they're telling is, why just go on holiday and stay in a standard hotel where everything's the same if for the same price or perhaps less, you could go stay in a Paris apartment, which is owned by someone who knows the city really well. And in the morning, they'll tell you how to get the best baguette. They'll tell you which is the best market to go to. If you want to buy street art, this is a secret place that you can go to. So again, it's a few words, live like a local, but it absolutely distills everything that Airbnb are doing. And for many people who are skeptical about buying, the more facts you give them, the more they're going, oh, please, I'm not interested. I'm just not interested. I'm overwhelmed with facts. I've got too much information already. Most people in their jobs are handling so many facts. I want to hear, we go back to the cat video, I want a story. I want something that's going to make me feel better. I want something that's going to motivate me and engage with my emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, it's kind of like if you the example I use is commercials on TV for mattresses, right? They don't talk about, oh, we have the best springs or the best material. They just keep showing images of clouds and people sleeping like a baby. And that's a lesson I learned about a year ago, actually, because I run a small business and I used to be a chef for 27 years. So I don't have a sales background. So
I know.
I used to, and the service we offer in my job
Day job,
is better than the competition. I know it because I've had enough people tell me. And I used to go into it when I would cold call potential clients, but they don't give a shit. And it took me forever to learn that
they
lesson.
Really don't.
and yeah, but I knew what I had was better. So, I then had to change my approach. So now my approach might be something more, I'll do a cold call and I'll say, hey, I'll try to focus more on them. Like, hey, if I had a suggestion on how to help you increase your revenue and brand awareness, would that be interesting to you, or something like that? Because then it's not about, hey, I have this to sell. It's, hey, this is how I could help you. That's just a random
the
example.
Other thing you can do is tell people stories of what their competitors are doing. So there may be someone down the road who's using your services, and you don't have to necessarily give names away, but you can say, would you be interested in knowing how XYZ increased their XYZ through using our services? Or would you be interested in learning how a competitor of yours had this amazing event where tons of people came, blah, 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 blah. But you're basically painting word pictures. And I think part of that is using open-ended questions. So you're not using yes/no questions until you really want one, right? So when you want one is when you say, are you open to something? Are you open to learning? Are you open to knowing? Are you open to receiving, or whatever it is? And that's when you want. That's part of rhetorical technique. It's almost, we've heard of the rhetorical question. The rhetorical question is a question it's very hard to say no to. So I had a kid at school come up to me one day and say, would you like to help stop babies dying? And I was like, yeah. Because what am I going to say? No, I don't want to help stop babies dying. So I was like, gee, that's super good. You should go work for, someone on Madison Avenue. But open-ended questions.
Speaking of
those,
Well, speaking of those types of techniques, there's a guy. He used to be, I think, an FBI negotiator named Chris Voss.
Uh-huh.
He's got a book out called Never Split the Difference. I haven't read it yet. I got it. I haven't read it, but I've watched some of his videos on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
He often likes to use the no technique. So where a no can be a yes. So like
Yeah.
if you're cold calling a potential client, you don't say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" Because that doesn't, you
Because they're
say
going to
something
say
like,
no.
"Yeah, well, yeah." So what you would say is, well, actually, here's the example he used. He wanted to interview a celebrity. I forget who it was. I think it was Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric,
Uh-huh.
and he said, "Would it be crazy if I were to ask you to come on our show?"
Uh-huh.
And then he said, "Well, no, it wouldn't be crazy at all." So the no works for a yes. You know what I mean? You ask a
Yeah.
question where no would be a yes. So,
But I
um,
also think there's a bit
so
of
okay. So
word
if you,
there's a bit of word picture going on there. Would it be crazy? Hey, let's throw caution to the wind. Why should we do the same thing everyone else is doing? A guy like that is, just he's an entrepreneur. He's a guy who's always thinking of things that people think are crazy. So it actually connects with him really well as well in terms of his kind of I guess the way that he makes decisions. I think it's very good that.
yeah, and he's apparently been very successful. So, um, but so okay. The next point is make their problem relatable. So do you mind touching on that? How you walk
So
people through that?
um, it can be the audience's problem or it can be the business's problem. But the audience's problem, um, for example, if we think about IKEA, the problem that a lot of people in that sort of incredibly large market have is they're either moving around or they've got a small space or they want flair, they want design flair, but they don't want to have to shop around too hard for it. And they like new things. They like to go and change things up a little bit. So what IKEA do super well is, if you have a look at some of their video advertising, it is absolutely fantastic because there's this one that they did where they used products from the store, but they use them as if they're cooking with them, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's so clever. So they've kind of miniaturized everything, and they make like little tape measures and sort of like there's this whole. I think they're cooking like an omelette or burgers, but it's all done using IKEA products, and it's so clever. And I had a student work through this with me, and she just loved this ad, and I said, "Why do you love it so much?" She says, "Well, not only is it funny and creative, but also it's actually showing you how inventive the product is. It's showing you how exciting it is to use, maybe think about things in a different way." Um, and also it showed you a lot of the products. So if we're talking about pack shots, like for example, in beer, you'll have a lot of pack shots where you see the brand over and over again in a different way that someone might be drinking, they might be putting it on a table or whatever it is. But in this sense, they were just able to show this really wide range of products. It was really fantastic. So it made the problem relatable, the audience's problem relatable, because it kind of said, look, we know what kind of person you are. We know that you need sort of a lot of different things from us. We know that you might come here for this or you might come here for that. But the thing that you can guarantee with us is that you're going to have fun. And what they leave out, which I think is super clever, is the fact they never ever show anyone unpacking a flat pack at the other end. So you never ever see people struggling with an Allen key and then the bookshelf falling over. It's all
Right.
about the joy of the final product, and they do that in their stores because they show you how things are put together. Like you'll walk in and they're perfectly manicured bedrooms. So they're selling you this idea. They're selling you a solution to your problem, and in a way, they're taking you past all the steps that you need to get there, because the steps that you need to get there is you have to schlep around and find the thing. Then you have to take it to the checkout where there's normally a queue. Then you have to hustle it into your car. Then you have to get it up the stairs of wherever it is. Then you have to unpack it and make it. but they've distilled all that down to fun in, oh look, this is how it could be. So it's very, very clever storytelling. And I think that, that's an advanced example of how making something relatable works. But, if you're talking about smaller businesses, then this is where you kind of have to do some work around distilling your message and then figuring out what is it that makes us relatable? What is it that makes us, what story can we tell that makes us relatable, so that we're having a conversation, so that we're friendly, so that we're approachable, so whatever it is our brand character's trying to be, every time we go out, whether it's on social media, on video, or whether it's, paid advertising, whatever, but whatever time we go out, it all fits into this narrative. So we always come back to that. You've got to know exactly what your message is and who you're talking to, because unless you've done that, you can't do all the fun stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, IKEA does a great job. Actually, I saw somebody sent me, it's kind of, I don't know if people get offended by this, but it was a joke on, somebody texted me.
Yeah.
And it was a priest putting together a crucifixion kit from IKEA.
Yeah.
So he had to, I was like, oh man, somebody's going to hell for that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was actually creative.
But they do that
because the image shows the
yeah. Well, it ends up being memes, because like at Christmas time you'll get snowman with fully built snowman, and it's like made with IKEA snowflakes or whatever. This is the final result.
And in this joke, the priest was like holding, he was holding Jesus here. He had the cross here. He had all the Allen wrenches, and because putting together some of the IKEA stuff is not exactly fun.
It isn't.
And so it was a joke on IKEA, not the crucifixion or Jesus. It was a joke, but they used that. I was like, holy shit. But
I
okay.
think that,
the next one is help them understand.
Yeah, sorry. There was one the other day I saw the Eiffel Tower. So in Paris it was half finished, and someone had an Allen key and an IKEA catalogue, and they were standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, and it was half built. And I was like, so it's gone into people's consciousness in the same way like Harley Davidson or all these amazing brands. They somehow managed to get that story into people's consciousness. And then that's half the battle, because once you're in people's consciousness, and then we go back to Apple, whenever they kind of add on to that, they've already done all this foundational work. So, yeah.
Well, it is in people's consciousness. It makes sense, because we all know the stuff. I mean, I bought stuff from IKEA. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Number 3, help them understand what you do.
Yeah. So let's talk about. I'm going to talk about established brands because it's easier. Because if I'm doing work with individual businesses, I'm not going to do that on a live session. It's just because you can't really have. You have to have a full conversation about it to get it to this kind of point. But what I would say is people help people understand what you do. So if you think about Patagonia is the outdoor brand. They've been going for a long time. Yep. They're really well trusted, incredibly credible. People wear their stuff into the Himalayas, and what they've done super well. And if you go onto Instagram, you'll see it. They let their customers storytell for them. So they've always got, like last week it was a climber, and obviously the climber's wearing the kit, but they're not actually talking about the brand. They're talking about the experience they're having with the environment that the brand is made for. So Patagonia have stopped selling, oh, our clothes are waterproof, durable, the zips are made double strength, all the rest of it. What they're doing is selling the experience the customer's having in them, because that's sort of, you can find that stuff out by going on their website. If you really want to know about zips and buckles, you can do that. But most people who love the outdoors are much more interested in what they're going to do in the product than they are with the product, if that makes sense. So where they are now is they've got to the point where the product becomes part of the experience, because okay, there are people who can afford Patagonia who will always buy Patagonia, but there's plenty of people out there who will save up for one item, like the jacket, because they're going to XYZ and they need this jacket, and then they'll keep it for years. So they've got a really super relationship with their customers, because they're not just saying, we're quite expensive. If you can afford us, then have fun. What they're saying is, have an experience, and everybody wants to have an experience. So that makes the product accessible to a much wider range of people than them just showing celebrities, for example, in their clothes, or famous climbers, or, what I'm saying? So you get the brands like Rolex and Breitling, a lot of the watches where they always have a celebrity wearing it, because it's such a high price point. Most people aren't gonna be in the market for, well, they might buy one, but it's going to be super aspirational. But with Patagonia, it's like they're looking for a broader cross section. So what they don't want to do is kind of have an exclusive conversation. They want to make sure that everybody's thinking about the brand and what they can do with that.
Okay. So the next point is humanize you and your company.
Right. So UK example, innocent drinks. So innocent drinks, you'll know the type of drink, so it doesn't super matter that it comes from the UK, but it's like quirky smoothies, very, very good for you, medium price point. You'll find them in most supermarkets, actually. You'll find them in, the airport. So they're not like the high price point. They're sort of medium price point, but you're probably spending, I don't know, $5 or $6, I suppose, on a bottle. But it's completely pure. So it's not like concentrated products, it's pure. So their story is three guys who came together at university, and they really wanted to start a company, but they weren't sure exactly how to do it. So they started to do field tests where they would take out their smoothies, and they'd have people taste them. And then they got a lot of video of this. So they had this grainy footage of the company in its very early days. So it's like an underdog story. And everybody loves an underdog. So it's a bit like, yeah, we want you to succeed. You see that on LinkedIn a lot. Like when people put posts about underdogs, you get tons and tons of comments and likes, because people love an underdog. And we've all been the underdog, or we're having an underdog day. So their story is the underdog. So they start and then finally we figured out, and then we got a bottle, and then it sort of pans to this beautiful farm in the middle of the countryside, and tons of happy people, and people sitting on bean bags, and people playing ping pong, and you just want to go work there because it's just so exciting and fun, and they've got all their family photos going up the stairs. And I think they are actually genuinely like that, because I know companies that aren't like that pretend to be, but I think they are actually genuinely a good employer. And then they started going into festivals, so people would they'd have a pop-up truck at a festival, and they'd have all sorts of special drinks for the festival, and so they just became this sort of like, when you pick up an innocent, you just feel better immediately. You feel better about the planet, you feel better about your body because you're putting something good into it. They give a lot back, so it becomes a circle, a consumer circle, where whatever point they touch the product at, it just makes the customer feel really good. So yeah, those kind of underdog stories work really well. So I know, perfect is not where it's at. Perfect is, Coca-Cola, for example, is perfect, but it's just not very, I don't know, it's very generic. So if you've got a smaller brand, you don't want to be Coca-Cola. You want to be the underdog, but you've got to figure out your underdog story.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Plus, you can't compete with Coca-Cola. Actually, nobody can.
Who wants to?
um, yeah, that's true too. Yeah. That's valid. Um, okay, and then the point number 5: eliminate discovery resistance.
Okay, so eliminate discovery resistance. I think, we all know consumers go on a journey, so they're not always going to buy from you the moment they set eyes on you. But what this goes back to repetitive, regular, and you've said this. I think I read a post from you this week about being consistent, but also you have to find a way to talk to your customers so that every time that you connect with them, they get something worthwhile. And it's not like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It might be a picture. Like if we go onto Instagram, it's all images. But if you want to start, again, we've figured out who we are. We've figured out who our audience is. Every time they connect with us, they're going to get this one thing. So, for example, if I'm on LinkedIn, I will always have my logo. I'll always have Success Stories Academy, and I'll always have Unlock the Secrets of Words That Work. Unlock the Secrets of Words That Work. So I'm just repeating that over and over again. And everything that I do, even when I share, like, I shared a story the other day of a guy who's a plumber who's gone around to help this woman who's 96 and she's got terminal cancer. And he said, anytime you want me to fix anything, I'm here. And I just thought that's a success story, so that's what I mean. Everything that I'm doing is going through that filter of, does this speak about people connecting with each other? Is this about successful communication? And is it about words that work? Yes, it is. I'm here to help. Wow. The most powerful words in the English language, unless they come from the government. And then they're not. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. I'm good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then that ties into the consistency with the branding as well when you're using the same imagery or logo or all of that.
Yeah. So that shower video.
Okay. So the
sorry, if I go back to your shower video, that for me is like you in a nutshell, because you're creative, you're funny, and also you have a really good way of connecting with people. Like, I'm just like you.
Oh, thank you.
And I really like that shower video does all of that. So that's what I'm saying. That eliminates discovery resistance, because you found a way of kind of putting everything I know about you into that one media idea. And I think that's what I mean about the cat video. It all kind of works together.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I was, when you're on social media, like everybody, you're trying to figure out what works, because we all want. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. We all want engagement. We all want to convert clients, and But I found that when I stopped thinking so hard, that's what came out, the shower video, and because I wasn't trying so hard. Because sometimes we get in our own way.
Oh yeah.
So, and if there's a way for me to do these podcasts from the shower, I'd do it. But
yeah.
And
just make sure you've got your electrics wrapped up nicely and lots of plastic.
That's right. Yeah, turn them all off. So the last point on your list: enable them to introduce other influencers and buyers to your brand.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about now is transformation, and I'm going to go right back to the beginning of where you're trying to figure out what your brand is, and you're trying to figure out who your customers are, and you're really scared, or you're just procrastinating, or you are doing 101 things. So I've done this. I had a business that was very much offline, and when COVID hit, I had to take it online, and I didn't want to be online. So I started making videos, and I started making perfect PDFs, and I started making Facebook ads, and I created a whole course for which I had no customers. But it was just like anything not to be online. I don't want to be online. So I spent a year avoiding being online. And then I started
like
working.
it now?
Sorry?
How do you, sorry, not to interrupt, but so are you liking it more now?
Yeah, because I took myself through some coaching of like, what the are you doing? You know you can do this. It's not like you can't do it. You just have to do it in a different place. Stop being. That's really what a coach. A lot of the time, it's like,
Yeah.
So I think that you have to become happy and in flow, and you get the basics working for you, and then what you want is the customer starts having a transformation with your product. So whatever it is. So for you, it's like, you're incredibly well, let me ask you, because I'm talking. So if you were to do your wine tasting event or something, what kind of transformation, what's the beginning when a person comes in, and then at the end when they leave it?
You mean a customer?
Yeah. So what happens?
They would walk up. Yeah, we would start a conversation with them, and find out what they like or dislike, and then introduce them to the brands, and offer a sample. And then as they're tasting, explain more details about the product. And a lot of times I like to use what I call the blind date method.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to go on a blind date for the most part, but in order to get somebody to go on a blind date, you typically have to talk up the other. Like, you're not going to go out on, if somebody tries to set you up on a blind date, you're probably not going to want to do it unless you already feel good about the other person before you meet them.
100%. Yeah.
And so I do the same thing with wine. So, like so I'll talk it up. Plus it's been well documented that the power of influencing other people's opinions. You can influence somebody's opinion so they like it more than they think they do,
Mm-hmm.
or so they think they like it more than they actually do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So what you've just walked me through,
And that's basically it. And then they taste, and hopefully they buy.
So you've walked me through a transformative experience, because a blind date, for example, can be a transformative experience, because you can, there's this person I really want you to meet. They're just like you. They're like this. They're like that. This is what they're like. They're so kind and whatever, blah, blah, blah. You go meet them, and they either are or they aren't. If they are, then the likelihood is you're going to have a transformative experience, which you're going to talk to other people about. If they're not like that, you're still going to talk about them, but it won't be the same way. So the transformative experience, like in my business, the transformative experience is someone comes to me who, either they need to give a keynote speech, or they need to figure out the kind of simplicity of the brand message, or whatever it is. A lot of the time, buried in there is fear, or I did it this way and it didn't work, so now I am. So some of that transformative work is actually visualizing where you want your company or your brand to be in 4 or 5 years' time. What do you want people to be doing? What do you want them to be saying about it? So in order for that to happen, what are you going to do now? What are the steps? So it's not like, Everest, a massive mountain. It's literally, let's start here. And if we get this right, this is going to happen. If we get that right, that's going to happen, because it is proven. I mean, people, like, we've talked about these brands today. some of them, like Innocent, started with literally no money. A lot of them start with nothing. I mean, Steve Jobs started in a garage. So it's not beyond the power of reality for you to make your brand really wonderfully approachable, and then people start talking about it. But there's a process of that, and for me, part of that is a transformative journey. I'm in my business, I'm leading people through a transformative journey. In your business, you're doing that, and that's what brands need to be doing, because if you're transformed, if something's transformed, then you are likely to tell other people about it. And I had someone on a coaching call with me last week, and within, I think 20 minutes of us finishing, she sent me an email saying, I have a friend who. So, that's how it works. But you've got to be able to lead someone through a transformation of some description, whatever it is. Even with ice cream, Ben & Jerry's are selling transformative experiences. Because it's like, why do you buy Ben & Jerry's?
The ice cream.
Yeah, because it's amazing ice cream. So, and if you look at the packaging and the story and the whole backstory and everything, it all works to make someone go into that supermarket, wherever it is, and pick up that pint. Because, it's like the get the DNA right and the rest follows. Yeah.
So before we wrap it up, let me just ask you one more question. So when we were chatting before we started the podcast, we were talking about, how politicians use rhetoric and a simple message, and it is very effective. Can you just touch on how, some of these, like how the rhetoric and the simple message works for politicians, and then I'm sure people watching can apply it to their business.
Yeah, so picture images. So if you think, we were talking about picture images, so relaxing break, comfortable mattress, good night's sleep. If you think about all of those little phrases, we start thinking about something and it changes how we're feeling about it. So, for example, Donald, whose name I hate mentioning, but anyway, started calling people Sleepy Ben, Crooked Hillary. And I couldn't believe it, but Boris Johnson, our English Prime Minister, who I apologise for, because his latest excuse for being in a room full of people with when he was meant to be in lockdown was he got ambushed by a birthday cake. So I've got a picture in my head of this like tank cake coming into the room. But even that's a picture image. He got ambushed by cake. So now there's all these memes going up, like, of soldiers made out of cake and all this stuff. But it was an excuse about why he was in a room with tons of people while the whole of the rest of the UK was in lockdown. People weren't able to go to funerals, people were in hospital, they weren't allowed to visit. Like, he was having big parties in Number 10. And his excuse this week was, well, I wasn't at this party, I was just ambushed by cake. And it's become this meme. And that's what I mean. It's like taken all of the focus off what's really going on and become funny. And, it's super powerful. So it's some of that, rhetorical questions, the use of very emotional words. So we all know the war on terror. You can't go to war on a noun, but we did.
Yeah.
Do you want terror?
Yeah.
Nobody wants terror. So yeah. So I if people are interested in doing that, especially for keynote addresses. So, okay, do you want a quick example, or are we out of time?
Yeah, no. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Oprah Winfrey gave the speech to the Golden Globes, and she started that speech with, I was a little girl sitting on a linoleum floor, and we were watching the Oscars, and I saw Sidney Poitier, this beautiful, elegant man, take the stage, and he looked like me. And as she started to tell that story, the word linoleum, it's like she's really specific. Like she's not just sitting on a floor, she's sitting on a linoleum floor. So she's not sitting on a carpet, she's not sitting in a beautiful armchair, she's sitting on a basic floor. You know, and that puts her right in a kind of like a humble position. And she, through that speech, she goes through a transformative journey that she had. But she starts really super, like another thing that we use in storytelling is called the hero's journey. So it starts on an ordinary day and then something incredible happens. And most of the superhero movies use the hero's journey. So Peter Parker, it was an ordinary day until he became Spider-Man. Or, you know, Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit was just living his hobbity life until he found the ring or whatever. So these are ingrained into our consciousness. So often in rhetoric, you'll find that whoever's speaking will take the audience on a hero's journey. And it might be as simple as ask not what is that famous Kennedy speech? I always get it the wrong way around. Ask not what America can do for you.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Ask what you
ask not what your country can do. Yeah, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yeah. So it's like a hero's journey, because it's like, you know, we're all America. And so those little phrases, I mean, you know, it takes hours and weeks sometimes to write speeches like that, because they're peppering them with these little techniques. And there's about 12 that I teach, but you can use them in, you know, you can use them in writing, you can use them in speaking, whatever. But they're useful to know, especially when you're having to argue with people.
What are they called? What are they called? Rhetoric techniques?
Yeah, so rhetorical devices. And you come up.
Rhetorical devices. Okay.
If I just list them off, glittering generalities is where you make a very complicated subject. So Osama bin Laden became the face of terrorism. So in a way, it's a generality, because it's like, you know, he represents an incredibly complex argument, but he just becomes the poster child for terrorism.
Oh, they simplified it to just him.
Yeah, so he's easy to understand. So when we're using glittering generalities, we're not using like very sophisticated language. We're using broad sweeping statements. So there was one that took us to war. They took the UK to war, despite that over 1 million people marched on the streets to say no, thank you. It was Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction that can be launched within 45 minutes. And the generality in that is that, you know, we don't know the research. We don't know, you know, who found this out. All we know that it's secret classified information. 45 minutes, though, that sounds really, really fast. And so they built this whole story around these little phrases. We don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud. Like they had these little phrases, and then they popped up in the press over and over and over again. So people started going, "Oh no, we don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud," and so on. So that's how it works. But it's all, you know, there's a reason why they sometimes use screenwriters to write these things.
Oh, okay. And then one question related to that, you in the beginning you talked about isn't one of them, like whether you're a politician or whether you are promoting your product, didn't you say one of the, or did I, at least this is what I took, one of the most important things is that your message is simple and that you repeat it, because isn't it that repetition builds trust or something like that?
Good repetition builds trust. Bad repetition builds people who don't want to talk to you. So there's not much point in repeating
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
terrible. I've got an example.
Yeah. I mean, assuming, yeah.
So no, it's like sometimes when we're doing story writing and someone say, I've got this plot, and I'll say, yeah, but is it a good plot? Because there's no point in having a bad plot. So yeah, but once you figured it out, yeah, do it in loads of different ways. Do it, you can do it in video, you can do it in Instagram, whatever you want to do, but you've just got to keep doing it. And yeah, just stay fresh. And I think what you said about actually not being over busy when you're trying to be creative, take yourself somewhere lovely, have a day out. Do not try and do the sort of fresh creative work.
Can't force it.
Do not do that. That's horrible.
Awesome. Well, now, so before I let you go, is there any like self-promotion you want to do? Any, is there anything I didn't cover that you want to cover?
No, I'm good. That's me in a nutshell. So no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. And then, like I said, before you go, let it wait like a minute or so before you hang up. But I'll like do an official end for the video, but then, like I said, don't hang out for like a minute. So,
Okay.
but ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Claire, thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and you're clearly a fantastic teacher. I mean, when we spoke, what was it, a year ago? I learned a lot. So, for anybody watching, Claire is for hire, and you can go to clairevorster.com, or you can find her on LinkedIn. Fantastic coach, knows her stuff. And if you go on her site, there are tons of positive testimonials about Claire. So Claire, thank you.
I appreciate it. I love talking to you, and all the best with everything you're doing. I can't wait for the next shower video.